And here we go once again from the national headquarters of RT America in our nation's capital. Hello again, everybody. I'm Rick Sanchez. Chris Hedges is probably one of the top journalists of our time. He is the real McCoy, bureau chief, New York Times, who was fired for telling the truth about the Iraq War. Now his books are flying off the shelves. I only mention that because he's going to be joining me here in just a little bit to talk about the phenomena of the Russia hysteria among normally sane reporters and what's going on right now in our country. Case in point, this weekend, NBC News went after Tulsi Gabbard. They're obviously not fans of Tulsi Gabbard. Why? Well, because she's apparently anti-war, and she's very critical of the U.S., quote, regime change in Syria. There was a time when politicians who were anti-war would be supported by our national media, if not at least given a fair hearing, right? But these are not normal times in America. Today, it seems our corporate media is more apt to cheerlead than question when it comes to issues, especially of war and peace. So when NBC needed a way to attack Tulsi Gabbard, who, by the way, is a Democratic congresswoman from Hawaii, what did they do? How do you attack a Tulsi Gabbard? Russia. That's right. In what has become the corporate media's mantra or go-to plan when it comes to anything or anybody that they don't like. It seems to be very simple for them. You just say Russia, Russia, Russia 3 times, really fast, and then you call yourself an investigative journalist while you're doing so, even if you're not really an investigative journalist. So here's the latest. You see that story right there? That's the article. The headline says, Russia's propaganda machine discovers 2020 Democratic candidate Tulsi Gabbard. See what they're doing there? They're attaching Tulsi Gabbard to Russia, attaching Russia to this television network, and then just putting it all together. It's like a guilt by association. If any one of those things you don't like, then you get to throw out everything and you say, I don't like anything then, right? Let me read you, by the way, the lead or the first sentence of this story, which goes on to say that the Russian propaganda machine that tried to influence the 2016 U.S. election is now promoting the Democratic aspirations of this controversial Hawaii Democrat. Controversial Hawaii Democrat. Because she's asking questions about wars. The evidence for that, by the way, well, they do a couple of things in this article. This is interesting. They mention that we here did a story about Gabbard getting a lot of heat for her anti-war position on Syria. But the thing about this article that's really curious, the thing you should know about, is how they source the story. See, because how they sourced this story is really what defies journalistic credulity. That story, by the way, that they mentioned that we did and was in an earlier part of the day here, it's one of about 100 stories that we tell every single day during the course of the day. And it did not run on this newscast. And this is RT America's primetime show. In fact, I've never even mentioned Tulsi Gabbard's name here on the news with Rick Sanchez since I've been doing it. We do not have an agenda. Our agenda, you know what our agenda is? Truth. We're not perfect by any means, and I am very imperfect. And we'll make mistakes along the way. But we are dedicated to the concept that it is time to do news again. What would our mothers say, right? Well, tonight, it's difficult to examine the state of American journalism and not be somewhat concerned. It seems that the pressures felt by many reporters to ignore the stories that they should be telling you while kowtowing to pro-war hawks and corporate elites has in some cases gotten the best of them. Not all, but in some cases, right? So this latest example that we're keying on today, because we think it's important, we think this is a case study of what appears to be an agenda-driven journalistic enterprise, right? Because the intent seems to be to exaggerate and even to deceive. Something that really should be beneath the dignity of what has long been a wonderful journalistic institution, like NBC News. I used to work there. Joining us now, RT correspondent Dan Cohen. He is joining us to explain this story. And, you know, I think what we should do, you and I, Dan, is we should cut right to the chase. The reason, from a journalistic standpoint, that there's something inherently wrong with this story is their sourcing. Who they relied on to tell this story is not a credible source. Discredited, in fact, not by Dan Cohen, not by Rick Sanchez, not by RT, but by the New York Times.
Exactly. The experts that this NBC article cites is from a group called New Knowledge. Now, New Knowledge is a cybersecurity firm that the New York Times revealed ran what they called an elaborate false flag operation in the 2017 Alabama Special Senate race. Now, this was part of a disinformation campaign waged against the voters of Alabama in order to basically bolster the Democrat Doug Jones, an eventual winner, and suppress the vote against Roy Moore. And so this is the source. These are the experts that this group cited who, you know, may be even under investigation.
So it's almost like I need to say something bad. Like if I'm doing a story about you, Dan, right? I'm going to do a story about Dan Cohen. And I need to find something bad about Dan Cohen. So I'm going to keep finding people. Maybe he had a girlfriend in high school. Maybe, you know what I mean? Until I find somebody. And even if we know that that girlfriend has lied her whole life, I'm still going to quote her. See, there's some malice involved in there, isn't there?
Oh, I mean, 100%. That's the whole point, is to gin up some kind of controversy, guilt by association, in order to smear Tulsi Gabbard because of, you know, what she represents, the threat that she apparently represents to, you know, these establishments.
And the fixation with immediately going to the go-to position, as I called it earlier, and that's Russia. Something that, you know, we happen to be a little sensitive to because we see it all the time. And that's not to say Russia's blameless, right? I mean, every country has their foreign policy and can be blamed. But in this case, it seems like an overreach.
Yeah, well, it's just tapping into this old Cold War sensibility that, you know, you thought would have gone away, would have dissipated after the Cold War, you know, has been over for 20-some years.
Right.
But it's still there, it's latent, and I think that's what they're really trying to tap into, to discredit Gabbard and us.
That's a great conversation. Thanks for looking into this for us. Dan Cohen, as usual, we thank you.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.